Okay, Hillary, Kelly, you're making me read this book, and here we go. You're listening to The Calm,
The Storm,
The Whimsy
podcast.
So last January in 2024, I was needing something to help in my life because it just seemed like it was crazy. I was stressed all the time. I always felt like I needed to apologize to everybody. I needed to be everything for everybody and do all the things all the time. So I noticed my health was struggling because my blood pressure was through the roof. And I went on a cruise with some friends, and my sister told me, I'm doing this book club. I think you should do it with me. And first off, I don't like to read, nor do I find time to read. And I was back and forth, and then I decided to, all right, I'm just going to do this. So we signed up to do this book club, and the thing that was so great is it kept me accountable to actually read the book and not read like the first few pages and let it sit around for a year. Mm-hmm. But there was just things in my life that I needed to change. I'm a big stuffer when things happen, so I stuff things down and I don't ever deal with situations. So that was one big thing I needed to work on. I just feel like this book has really just helped change my life and have me think about things differently. And I do have moments where I struggle with old ways. I'm just a work in progress, but overall, like, I would recommend anybody read this book, and it's hard to put down. At least I felt that way. Yeah. Because it just spoke to me.
So why don't you tell us what the title of the book is?
Oh, yeah. The book is... Okay, I should probably be serious. Okay, the book is called The Metanoia Method, and it's how the brain, body, and Bible work together.
Okay, so just so people know what the book is about.
That's true.
Yeah. That wasn't supposed to be you, but I was just going to read the back of it just so people kind of know why we're talking about what we're talking about. So it says, look around you. You noticed it, right? The Christian community seems to be looking more and more like the world around us. Grief, chronic illness, mental health challenges, broken marriages, addiction. Aren't there supposed to be the things Jesus sets us free from? And yet it doesn't seem to be working anymore, does it? Has the gospel of Jesus somehow lost its power? Absolutely not. Kent and Heather McKean served in the full-time ministry for over 15 years across the United States and abroad, which has provided a unique insight into some of the challenges facing members and leaders alike within the Christian churches. For years, Kent and Heather tried to ignore the growing discontentment and disillusionment they witnessed in their congregations and within themselves until Heather found herself near death. After years of suffering from debilitating chronic illness, Heather used the methods described in this book to heal from all her major health issues. She also experienced an unexpected but radical transformation in her faith and relationship with God. Kent witnessed his wife's incredible change and was inspired to dig deep into his limiting beliefs around himself and God, finding profound transformation in his own life. From that time on, they answered the call to share the information with the world. So, what does metanoia even mean?
It's a mind change.
Yeah. And they use a Bible verse to explain how to get that mind change. Romans 12:12, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. So it sounds kind of intense, right? So far, what has been your experience? Kelly already said that she hasn't been able to put it down. We all know that I don't love to read, and I love it so much. I can't stop reading it. I have highlighted so many things. I want to read it, and then I want to read it again. What about you, Crystal?
I love to read.
Yes.
And I have struggled.
Okay.
I'm struggling.
Yeah.
So I'm struggling because I don't read a lot of books for me.
Yeah.
I read a lot of fantasy and fiction.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So it's one of those things where I'm like, self-help book again. Like, it's going to tell me the same thing. So I'm not as far in the book as you both are.
Yeah.
So I'm getting there.
So do you think that
I read what I needed to read for tonight.
Yeah. So do you think that it's like, it's telling me the same thing? Or I don't really want to think about these things? Or I don't want to have to think about it, what I'm reading at all, because I'd rather just enjoy it?
So the reason I'd never read before is because I didn't want to read for knowledge. So like in the past, I didn't want to read to learn.
Yeah.
It's not one of my favorite things to do. And second, I think that reading a book that is nonfiction for me is, I don't know. I'm not sure. I do know that I feel like I have done a lot of life change or mind change for myself.
Yeah.
Through the years with God. And so I'm not sure if it's just one of those things where I'm like, oh,
You've read that before
or I did that.
it.
Yeah. But there's definitely things that as I read on, like.
Yeah. Is growing on you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. For sure. It's just funny because I'm one of the people that I would have been like, I like to read. I love to read. And I'm like, wow, I'm having a hard time.
Why are they making me
this.
read this?
Right? Why are we reading this, guys? Can't we read the fiction over there?
That's amazing.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's good. I like that I have a different perspective too.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
if we all three had the same perspective of something, we wouldn't be interesting to listen to in this aspect. So
it's funny because I've had this book probably for like a year. When you started reading it,
and then I actually bought it for both of them for Christmas, and Hillary's like, I already got that book. I know I forgot.
Yeah, I told you, but it just sat there.
Yeah.
And now I'm finally like, this would be a really good book to read and talk about, but I didn't know that I would love it as much as I do.
I'm surprised. I'm shocked.
I know. So
well, first of all, I'm shocked that Kelly read the whole thing already.
Yeah.
So like last year, like she's not a reader either. And so, but you like to gain knowledge.
Yeah,
I do.
So you gain knowledge, whether you're like on your phone looking for something,
Research,
but you're researching. So you're curious.
I don't apparently like to gain knowledge. I'd rather not research or read.
I mean, for a long time, that's where you were.
I know.
You didn't want to know anything.
I know. I still struggle to want to know things, but I feel more challenged.
I am shocked that Kelly has read the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that you are way more than half. Like, not half, but you're
farther ahead than I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because it's so good.
It is good.
And it's funny. This is the thing about Kelly. She kind of reminds me of my husband sometimes. And she plants these seeds and she just starts small. Like, hey guys, this book is what I'm reading. It's really good. Knowing that she wants us to read it, but then just keeps bringing it up in bigger like ways throughout the year.
Until we're like, you know what, we're going to read the book.
We're going to read it. But there are so many good things in here. And I have highlighted so many things that we can't talk about at all. So you should read the book. But were there any quotes that stuck out to you or anything that you found in the book that stood out a lot?
So one thing I just want to say, when I got this book and I started reading with the book club and I had to get so much read every week and then we talked about it, it was just really good for me because I was in a place where my health wasn't good. And I am just on the side of things that God made our bodies to heal themselves and to take care of themselves. And I didn't see that I wanted to just go get a medication right away without trying to figure out why. So going through this has helped me a ton, and I still have a lot of work to do, but I feel like God's definitely put me in the right direction.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find my stuff here.
So one of them for me, I highlighted, God didn't ask us to love him in 3 distinct temporary behavior modification ways. Instead, he gave us the map of how to be the whole person he originally designed to love and grow and give. So he's talking about the verse about how we're supposed to love the Lord our God with all of our heart, soul, and strength, not behavior modifications. And I've never looked at it that way. So like when I try to get healthier emotionally or in a relationship or with eating, I'm not supposed to be doing it by just changing a behavior for a little bit, because when I do that, I always end up right back where I started. But if I'm doing it with my whole love for God, my whole self, I just guess I've never looked at it like that. When I know I need something to change, I'm more reliant on myself and modifying my behavior, not with my whole person, you know? Yeah. So that really stood out to me.
Trying to find that. Okay, this is one that kind of goes along with that. We can change our situation, locations, vocations, and even our appearance, but if we do not change what we hold within us, we eventually end up back in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that this was really interesting because I never really processed this. But when it talks about in the first chapter, what is the first chapter? The plan, I think is what it's called. Oh, what happened to the plan? So like the church and how the church is dysfunctional across the board. And we know that. We've all experienced church dysfunction. We're human. And so we see all of that. And then we talk about it, how dysfunctional things are, and all of these, you know, all the different pieces and parts. And so it says in here, if at any time you find yourself turning towards a narrative of the church is the problem, I invite you to pause and look inward and see if you may be personally contributing to this story. So what is the narrative that's in my head that makes the church the problem? How am I contributing to that? Which was like mind-blowing for me, because I'm like, it's always something else going on there. Or the worship isn't good anymore, or this is happening, or, you know, and all these things. Well, what's actually going inside of me that makes me feel that way?
Yeah.
Because it's always, the church is always going to be human. And so how am I contributing to that? I'm like, whoa.
Wow.
I was like, okay, Hillary, Kelly, you're making me read this book, and here we go.
Well, what's funny to me about you saying that is we had dinner prior to recording tonight, and I vented a lot about the church.
Yeah, we did.
I didn't think about being the problem. Thanks for that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was not saying that about you.
I know.
Tonight about dinner. But it does make you step back a moment and say, what is going on inside of me that makes this story about the church a problem? And I just...
Thanks for that.
I'm sorry. It's what I'm dealing with and processing with, because I am not okay right now sometimes with church things.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say that because I should be fine with church. Church is church, and you should feel good about it, and you should go every Sunday. And I struggle with some of the things that happen and go on, not just in my church, but in church in general.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, I need to probably think about myself in that, in those, like,
crap.
So then it goes further down in that same paragraph. It says, the crisis I speak of is degradation, yeah. And the holiness of the church, holy meaning set apart, okay? So that we are called to be set apart, a light, a salt of the earth, an ambassador of Christ, and a student of truth. Consider Paul's encouragement to the church in Corinth. And it says, and we all who are unveiled faces contemplate the Lord's glory are being transformed into his image with ever increasing glory, which comes from the Lord, who is the Holy Spirit. 2 Corinthians 3:18. So, like, now not only am I thinking about my inward part of the story, but now I have to be set apart. And I have to be set apart from that story, the dysfunctional church. So I'm like, guys.
So not only do we have to read this stuff and get convicted on our own, but then when we talk about it, we have to point out more to be convicted about to each other.
It's funny because everything is different convictions.
Yeah.
So like when we read these things, it's not the same thing.
Out, yeah.
And sorry. So you wonder why I'm like, why? I'm struggling through this book. First chapter is rough, guys.
I need a lot of help. That's why I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Highlight.
Oh, man, I could go on. The first chapter rocked my world.
Yeah.
So.
Do you have more to share?
I have so much highlighted.
Same.
I will let you know when I...
Yeah, we need people to read the book so they know what we're talking about.
Can I read this other part to
go
you?
For it.
So it says here, many churches have become less a place of healing and transformation and more of a support group structure. Many fellowships have become a collection of problem-specific ministries. Grief ministry, addiction ministry, sexual identification ministry, chronic illness ministry, etc. Many see this as progress, as a way to continually meet the needs of the members. Please hear me say this. I am not against supporting people in their struggles. I am a firm believer in meeting people where they are at, but I want us to be very careful in the effort to support. We do not cross over into enabling. Do we believe that God is a God of healing? Or is he just a divine entity with unlimited band-aids to hand out? What doctrine have we accepted in our minds to make sense of what we are seeing in this day and age? Oh, sorry.
And all the guilt and shame that's like involved in the church sometimes. We should be free from that. God sets us free.
And what is the support group helping us with? Just patting us on the back and saying it's okay? Like, are we changing things?
Right.
Are we making a difference?
I think the hard part is so many well-intended people, and even me, are trying to be helpful, but have never really known how to. I mean, it's the same thing when we talk about discipleship. Like, if you've never been taught how to do something, you can't lead other people into doing it. So if you've never been truly discipled once you became a believer, you can't really lead other people in that way. Or if you've never truly been able to learn how to renew your mind, then you can't really help other people renew their mind. So then it is just a bunch of events or ministries that you're well-intended. You want to help people.
Yeah.
None of it is not to help. I mean, that's the goal. People are investing their time in it. But until we learn these things for ourselves, we cannot help other people learn them.
Right.
So the book is Heather and Kent, a married couple, writing it together. They take turns writing, and they both share their story, their personal testimony. And there was a lot in their testimonies. But both of their stories are completely different, very opposite extremes, I felt like. And so I was just wondering, for the two of you, like, what story did you relate to the most and why? And I feel like Heather's story talked a lot about addiction and abuse and divorce and struggling to find true Christianity until later on in her life. And Kent, his story was more, grew up in a good missionary family and learned all the right things right away and thought he knew the best of the best about Christianity. And so they both found that their minds were not right, but in different ways. So which story between those two do you feel like you related to the most?
Mine would be totally Kent. I grew up in the good Christian home. And I thought it was funny because there's some things in here where he was made to feel guilty about certain things, and totally understand that. So I'm just I'm on track with him. Like, he even said, you see, some people are so good at focusing on what's wrong that they become victims of everything in life. Like, I had that highlighted because I don't know, that just...
Yeah. I also felt like I could relate to Kent because, I mean, there was different, like, traumatic things throughout my life, or things that maybe weren't as smooth sailing as they were for him, or at least appeared to be. But he talked a lot about, like, doing the right things and being good and really, like, living a fear-based life.
Right.
As a believer. And the funny thing is to feel like you grew up in the teaching that you are doing good and you're pleasing God and everything you're doing is good in his eyes and all of those things. One of the lines that he wrote was, along the way, others would affirm me, but it didn't matter because I couldn't see my own value. One of my life's goals has always been to love people as Jesus has loved me, but how could I possibly love others like Jesus if I couldn't even stand to look at and love everything about myself? So even somebody who grew up in what he considered to be this like perfect model of Christianity still really hadn't had transformation of his mind.
Right.
Didn't really fully understand Christianity for himself, because a lot of times we just go based on what we're taught. Not something that we've learned for ourselves and studied and sought out ourselves. So I think that we've talked plenty of times on here about words of affirmation being my love language. But I'm always craving more, right? Mm-hmm. It's because you could tell me all the things that you love about me and how you appreciate me and what you see in me every single day. And it's only going to be a temporary fix, because if I don't truly value myself
and believe everything,
and believe those things, it doesn't, nothing is going to work because of other people. Like, I have to be able to find that value in my relationship with God first.
Yeah.
What about you? Whose story did you relate to?
Well, I related to Kent's story as well. So Kent's story is a winner. It was interesting because when I read Heather's story, I was like almost not able to relate at all.
Yeah.
Because I didn't live that. That wasn't part of my story or, you know, the things that she has gone through. But instantly on the first page was like, yes, this is, so first chapter was great for me, kind of frustrating with the whole church stuff.
Got fired up, yeah.
Got fired up, was like, yep, this is how I feel, okay. Second chapter, I was like, no, I don't feel it, not feeling it. And then third chapter came and I was like, yep. So third chapter is like lit up here. But so it was interesting, and this is a long part that I have underlined, so I'm probably not going to read it all. But it says here, from a young age, I saw my upbringing as the perfect life. Mm-hmm. And throughout my adolescence and young adulthood, I held on to that belief. Everything that seemed out of whack, I filtered through my perfect life lens, which saved me a lot of grief and hurt. And it was interesting because a lot of grief and hurt I didn't feel, but I created a lot of grief and a lot of hurt for others, because it wasn't going to be me that was going to get hurt. Who cares about you getting hurt? It was me that wasn't going to get hurt in my mind. And so that happened a lot.
But those are future chapters you haven't gotten to.
Oh, okay.
That's your subconscious at work.
Okay.
There's a reason.
Well, I was just going to say, no, I know all the reasons, but I mean, I don't know all the reasons.
Yeah.
But it also prevented me from feeling safe enough to deal with embrace everything I have encountered. So the very last part of this says, but I could not and would not become fully authentic until there was nowhere left for me to run. And I have experienced that. So there has been many times in my life where I just was able to shove it under the rug and look at it through my perfect life lenses and say, life is good, it's great.
Yeah.
And then when there was nowhere else to go. Yep.
It's funny too, because I feel like anytime I've struggled with something and anybody's tried to help me like go back and look at maybe where it stems from, I felt guilty because I didn't feel like I had a Heather story. I felt like my childhood was good. I don't have any reason to complain. I don't have anything to be struggling with. Like, I had a really good childhood, a good life. But it's funny how that alone can stop you from that transformation of your mind, because you won't allow yourself to work through things that actually were hard for you because you have been taught in your upbringing by a certain religion or denomination, I should say.
Yeah.
To feel bad about feeling bad.
Yeah. Or saying something that like is healing, but is probably not what everybody wants to hear.
Right.
So when we were going through this the first time, because same thing, I felt like I had the perfect childhood. Like nothing was really bad. Nothing, really stood out to be like this big event.
Yeah.
And then like when I was reading through it and trying to seek some things out, like I just made that up in my head a few times. Like there were some pretty rough things that happened to our family, but in my world, it was fine. My parents made it seem fine. And like the realities of it didn't hit me as hard as like my sister who was older, who knew like we had to move out of our home that we grew up in. And I mean, that was hard for me, but it's weird how your mind works. Like I almost, like we were talking about it when we moved out of my childhood home. I do not remember actually moving out. I remember being there as a family, and then I remember where we ended up, but I don't remember us like walking out and leaving. It's so weird how like in your mind, but in my mind, I'm like, oh, I had a great childhood and it was good, but there were things in there that like, I don't know if my mind just protected me from things or I just remember them differently or my mind has told me that I remember them differently. It's just crazy stuff.
I'm going to ask a question that I don't actually feel like I at all have the answer to. So this is just discussion, right?
Okay.
So it talked in the book, I think it was Kent, I don't remember now, but about how we were created evil. Like there's sin in all of us. We're born with sin. So we're not good. But then they also shared in the book about how in the beginning, God created this and he created that and he created us in God's image and said, you are good. So where is that fine line? Because we are born into sin now, right? But I do still believe that we are good in God's eyes. But the denomination that I grew up in did not ever teach me that I was good in any way. What do you do with that?
So is that meaning good as in good because we're his creation or good as in like good people?
I don't know that I don't know. I feel like I can't find it in the book now.
Sure.
But I've never been able to even process being good at all.
Yeah.
In any way.
I mean, I don't think that is what we're taught for sure.
Right.
So, I mean, that like, I think, I don't know. So like we're good as in creation, like our human, God said, let there be man. And he said that it was good. And so like, even before sin, we were created good in God's image. I don't believe that we can do anything good outside of God.
On our own, yeah.
On our own.
So when he says we're created in his image, and then it even says here, it's on page 62, it said, if he is the great I am, then I must be pretty great too. Like we were created in his image. So he created us
as
to
our
be good.
Being. Yeah. And so that's his desire.
We are who he says we are.
Yeah.
Like
that's his desire. And I think we are to be good, like created good.
Yeah.
In the church I grew up in too, it wasn't like, hey, God loves you. I mean, yes, we heard that message. That is not what I mean.
Sure.
But it wasn't like, you are in God's image. Like, you're good.
Yeah.
You're good. Like, not, you can't do this. You can't do that. Nope, you shouldn't do that. You're going to go to hell. You're going to go to hell. You're going to go to hell. You better not do that.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that. Like, God loves you. And
but like that freedom of being.
Like, where's God's love without all the guilt and shame? When you let go of all the things and you just love God, there shouldn't be this heavy burden of guilt and shame anymore.
I would agree. And I feel like there's freedom in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because I feel like it's always one extreme or the other. Either it's fear, guilt, you're bad, you did bad things, you're going to go to hell, you're going to go to hell, or the opposite end of God loves you and whatever happens.
And grace is abounding for you.
Yeah.
Everything that you do is under God's grace.
Yeah. But there's a middle line there where I'm realizing we are good. God created us in his image, but we need him to make good choices or there's still got to be conviction in our lives. There still has to be repentance. It isn't God loves us so much we can just be crazy people.
Absolutely.
And do whatever the heck we feel like we want to do.
Yeah. I mean, and I do think that people take the grace piece
so far.
Yeah. And then they take the guilt piece so far.
Yeah.
And there's that, you're right. There is an in between of where God created us and we were good in his eyes and we are in his image. Why would we not be good if we were made in his image? Yeah. I mean, we're supposed to reflect and be who he is.
I don't think we're born and then God's like, oh crap, there's another one. I gotta deal with that again.
No.
Like,
for sure.
That's a celebration. That's a blessing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you read this, Crystal. Do you believe that God is a God of healing or just a divine entity with unlimited Band-Aids? How does this show up in your life? So I say I believe that God is a God of healing, but I still use all the Band-Aids. Mm-hmm. I think that there are most things in my life, after reading what I've read, that I have used bandages, behavior modifications, but not truly healed from.
Mm-hmm. So are those Band-Aids holding on, ready to burst?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't really want to look at what's underneath them.
They've been there for a long time.
Yeah. Because I don't think I was ever taught how to heal.
I don't think any of us have been taught how to heal.
Yeah.
And what's really cool is we're reading this and we are learning all these things and we'll be able to teach our kids.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. This is how to heal and you don't have to stuff all this stuff and stress about this stuff. And you need to let things go and you need to view yourself in God's image.
Yeah.
So I think it's an interesting question that you ask that about the healing or the Band-Aid God of Band-Aids or God of healing. Mm-hmm. And I honestly believe that God is a God of healing. Mm-hmm. And I think that we limit him
so much,
especially in first world America.
Yeah.
And when you go outside of first world, mm-hmm. you see things that happen that you cannot explain.
Right.
And you can only say, God did this.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know why he heals some people and why he chooses for people to suffer or to work through their healing or the whole mm-hmm. process. I have no idea how all of that works or why that happens. But I do know that we limit him, and with the amount of limitations that we have put on him in this world has suppressed him.
Yeah.
And I think that, in our own lives, we can allow that oppression, that to be released.
Yeah.
And to see the healing happen in true God fashion, the way that he was designed to heal.
When we were in Africa, we saw amazing things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I think about it, why doesn't that stuff happen here? Mm. But it could.
Absolutely.
I feel like these people had nothing mm-hmm. but God.
Yeah.
They didn't have
mm-hmm.
cars and busy schedules and all the things that mm-hmm. crowd all of our lives.
Even their own rooms.
We're distracted.
They share one big room.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just crazy how these people, every thought of their being mm-hmm. was believing that God could heal them mm-hmm. through us because we were mm-hmm. there and prayed over them. And we saw a blind lady healed and could see. Mm-hmm. And we saw rain come that people have been praying for months. It's just, mm-hmm. Oh, what a cool trip.
But it's funny too, because when we removed ourselves from here, we fully believed in God's healing power too. And I feel like
we still limit that. Right?
Here, but there I feel like we didn't.
Right. So it's interesting because like I've seen people and heard people's stories of like going to like third world countries or to the jungle and different things. And they have, so we of little faith, we believe in a God that is bigger than all things. Okay. But yet these people in jungles and in Africa and different places even believe in gods that aren't real and see things happen. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, what is it with us that we can't even trust and believe in the true God to heal our land, our people, us? And like, we look at people who are like witch doctor, you know, there's like witch doctors out there doing things in Satan's name and things are happening. So why can things not happen under God's head? Like, it's crazy.
We get in the way.
We get in the way.
Not that, I mean, he can still and will still do things regardless of us, but we definitely put him in a box. But I also
think that there is a part of that limitation that suppresses God to a point of where he's like, okay, well, if you're not going to trust me with that, I'm probably not going to show up that way. Yeah. Like in those moments, unless you are trusting in that.
And I also believe our mind has a lot, like, we can believe, like if we believe, like in Africa, we truly believe that God could heal that woman that came to us. So I just want to get more like that here, like just with everything, like just believing that if it's something that we care about and pray about, like he's capable. Mm-hmm. So if it's in his will.
The funny thing though is the more that we talk about this, I don't know how to say what I'm thinking. If we're unwilling to look under the Band-Aids.
Yes.
And actually do mind change work. When we pray for something and say we really believe it, are we really believing it if we're ignoring all the things that God's already directed us to do to be renewed?
Right. So you're rotting underneath those Band-Aids, but trusting and hoping
that he'll just fix it all.
God's just going to heal it for you.
Can you just heal it without me having to actually listen to what you've told me?
Interesting. So, I mean, I feel like that's a huge thing that just like sparked in my head, because if we trust in a God to do the work, then why do we have the Band-Aids? No, and I'm serious about that, because I'm like, wait a minute, hello. But it like, there's our part that has to be, that has to happen on that. But like, if we truly trusted, even from the beginning, before the Band-Aids came. So, I mean, the Band-Aids came when we were like 3 years old. Like we're starting to put Band-Aids on pretty early.
Yeah.
And so like, if we believe and trust in God, like before the Band-Aids come on, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And right now, like when you have the Band-Aids on, it's hard to dig and look under those Band-Aids.
Absolutely.
It's not pretty sometimes. And so
we're talking about Band-Aids that have been there for a long time.
So this week, I had something that was like really bothering me. And I went to see the lady who actually ran this book study with us. And she helped me through some of this like Metanoia Method stuff. And I can't even begin to tell you how much better I feel. So like it works.
Yeah.
It works. But it's like one thing at a time, like peeling back those layers. Like, why is this truly bothering you? Is it really this situation, or is it something when you were like, it brought out things like I didn't know that I had issues with when I was a kid. I'm like, what? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Which is very scary to go down that road.
Yeah.
Because in our human nature,
feel like it's healing.
In our human nature, it's easier to push it down and pretend. And I'm not a push it down kind of person. At least I didn't think I was. But the more that I think about it, like this will pull stuff out. Like, and if you actually want to heal, you have to let God like chip away at that stuff. but the process is not going to be fun.
No.
Healthy, good, rewarding.
And freeing.
Yeah.
Like it's weird. I feel so much better today.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You seem so much better today.
I feel so much better. My mind is so much clearer. I don't know. It's weird.
I
didn't realize I was dealing with undervalued stuff when I was young. I don't know where it came from. If it was from school, friendships, church, home. Like I lived in a great home.
Yeah.
But somehow this stuck with me and I felt this my whole life and it came out in something that I had no idea that that's what this was all tied to.
Yeah.
So in Kent's story, as his wife was healing, he was not. And so they were not on the same page.
Right.
And so Aaron and I have experienced that difference before in us when I felt like he was super healthy and I was not.
Yeah.
And so when I read this, it was interesting because I was like, I've been there. Like I have experienced this where my husband is like serving at church and he's spiritually healthy and he's emotionally healthy and everything's going really well for him in these moments. And here I am, I'm drowning. Like I don't want to be at church. I don't want to serve at church. I don't even know how to get my head above the water to pray for help. Like, and those were like years ago. And I'm like jealous and angry and mad and like, why is he healthy and I'm not? Like, I'm the one who's supposed to be healthy. I have the perfect life lenses. And it like all hit me that I am a mess. And so this was just interesting because it says here, she was happy and continuously becoming the best version of herself. In 2013, something was displaced in me when Heather began to heal from the inside out. She started to see life, health, and happiness, even God, in a completely different light, through new eyes and different lens. But that meant seeing life, marriage, parenting, ministry, church, and everything else from a different point of view, while I was still living in my perfect life. And that's when you realize that your life's not perfect.
Yeah.
When you see someone growing, even though I was always felt like I was the one who was growing. And then when you see your spouse growing and you're stuck and you're like, oh, my lens are not perfect and I have nowhere to run. And I've tried out every 3 bears chair and bed there is. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to find the next best thing and it's not there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa.
Wow.
Whoa. So yeah. So I say I didn't like the book, but it's rocking my world. So that's why I don't like it. No.
Yeah. It's hard.
So I just feel like it's been a lot.
Yeah. It is a lot.
It's a lot. Mm-hmm. A lot of good things.
Yeah.
And so that was many years ago for me. And I can look back at that and say, I'm trying to think it was probably it's funny because he says 2013 and for me it was 2015 where I just was in a moment in life where I was like, no.
Yeah.
I don't have my perfect lens are gone and life is dark and hard and I'm not sure I like it.
What are your thoughts about this phrase? We can only give what we hold within. I just had this conversation with one of my children recently. Whatever you are filling your mind with or pouring into your mind or however you're letting your mind heal or not heal is what is going to come out of you. I have a lot that I don't hold within that I wish I did right now.
Can you say that again so I can write it down real quick?
Yeah. What are your thoughts about this phrase? We can only give what we hold within.
Okay.
Well, what are your thoughts?
I write it down because I have to think about this. Whoa.
Yeah.
So we will leave it with that question. You can only give what you hold within. But I just encourage you all if you're interested at all, to get this book on Amazon and even follow along with us. And if you have questions, ask. But have a good week and keep listening.
Thank you for listening to the Calm, the Storm, the Whimsy podcast. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Facebook, and Instagram. Stay tuned for our next episode.
Kelly just jumped.
Lenny and I say that all the time now. Okay, bye.
Oh my God.
He says it all the time.
When you say it when you're annoyed, it's amazing.
I didn't even know it was a thing I did.
Well,
it's
a
all the
thing. And
time.
now it's a thing from everybody. We're all like, okay, bye.
So you're making fun of me?
No, we love it.
Yeah.
It's not that we're making fun of you.
Are
It
you
was just
okay with
amazing.
that?
Yeah, I think I am.
Okay.
You better be, because we love saying
So
it.
what noises go with this face?
We have,
so perfect.
we have to do it. We have to do